Welcome to Around the Weird. Here's your host, the museum curator of the strange and unusual, Mr. Nothing.
Thank you, mysterious voice, and welcome back to Around the Weird, a booktube channel where I talk about all the unusual and out of the ordinary literature that I've found in my travels. Today it is Short Story Tuesday, so I wanted to talk about a short story that I found to be quite interesting. Maybe not entirely for positive reasons. It is about an act of kindness. I am referring to Why He Carried the Turkey by James Baldwin, which was published in 1912. For those who don't know, James Baldwin, not the one that you're thinking of, but another James Baldwin, was a writer in the mid-1800s to the early 1900s. He wrote a lot of short stories. He was also a teacher teaching children, and a lot of his work focused on imparting lessons to children. And other people have said that he was heavily involved in myth making about this country in the same way that Washington Irving was. So it's interesting to see another author like that out there. And yeah, there's not too much other information I found about him out there. I'm actually surprised that I even found this short story, because it's from an author that I never knew existed and has probably been lost to the sands of time, to be honest. But without further ado, let's talk about Why He Carried the Turkey. I will do a summary, a little bit of analysis, and we will move on from there. So Why He Carried the Turkey focuses on an old man who goes to the market seeking to buy a turkey at the market, and he pays for it and everything is great for him. And then a young man comes to the market at the same time to request a turkey, which he buys, and then asks if he can get it sent to his home. The businessman, the grocer, whatever we want to call it, tells him that the errand boy is out and they don't usually fulfill these types of requests. So the young man is just like, how am I supposed to take my turkey home? Even though he could have very easily carried it. But the old man volunteers to carry the turkey. They take it back to the young man's house, and the old man says that there is no charge for delivering this turkey, that he's doing it for free and whatnot. And then as the old man goes, the young man is taken aback by this act of kindness, and he asks a passerby who the old man was, and they tell him that old man was none other than Chief Justice John Marshall of the U.S. Supreme Court. And one of them says that he did this as a means to teach a lesson about taking your own turkeys home if you could, and just doing what you can whenever possible. But another person stops and says, no, John Marshall did it because he's a kind person and that's just who he is. And that's really where the story ends there. In terms of analysis, there's a little bit worth talking about in this very short story. It's just 3 pages, but boy howdy does James Baldwin, really talk about some interesting things, for better or worse. One of the themes that he's working with here is that of kindness. Baldwin shows that it is best to help others when possible. In this case, it's, helping a person take a turkey home, but it could be grander, even smaller gestures. But it's just important to be kind, which is a very important message that you want to send to people, especially the children who you're kind of aiming these messages at. And also, you see this by John Marshall in this story. He's not seeking anything in return, no money or anything like that. He's just doing it because of goodwill, and he's using it as an opportunity to teach a lesson, which is nice, imparting something on another person through a small act of kindness here. And he's like, Baldwin is also showing that even those higher up like have this duty to do an act of kindness. Someone as powerful as a Supreme Court justice. Of course, I do think that's kind of denying reality in that, sure, they do have an obligation to do that, but do they actually do that? Because we've seen people with a lot of power just refuse to help those who are less fortunate or in need of help, and even spread propaganda about them being burdens on the system. Of course, even though that's the reality, you probably wouldn't tell that to children. And like, this is just a simple message for kids that it's important to be kind, and you're hoping that sticks rather than the weird reality that you see when you're older. But I do think it's I'll talk a little bit about that later. Like, it's weird that Baldwin kind of denies that reality or exists in a reality where maybe it seems like these very wealthy people are doing kind things for complete strangers on the streets. And as I mentioned in the intro, Baldwin does a little bit of myth-making in this story. Like Washington Irving, Baldwin tries to mythologize America's early history. So I think Chief Justice John Marshall died about 15 years before Baldwin was born. But even then, like, he's writing this story in 1912. And so, this is long after Marshall has died, and so he's sort of building up the legend of who this person was. You see that with George Washington Irving, Washington Irving. You see that with him trying to mythologize George Washington by trying to portray him as a noble and heroic kind of man. And again, like, John Marshall here is portrayed as an outgoing man of the people, willing to help others when necessary. So a very kind of romantic image of the past and of the early political figures who existed during that time. Of course, I do think this is kind of a harmful message that again denies reality, because you're portraying John Marshall as this man who's willing to do anything for his neighbor, but that's not who he was in reality, because he owned slaves, like a lot of people in the 1800s did. But what's interesting is that he not only did he own slaves, but he also wrote decisions for the Supreme Court that kept the institution of slavery in place, which is, an ethical kind of dilemma right there. But the Supreme Court is no stranger to ethical conflicts and moral failings. Topical joke there. But yeah, like in trying to portray John Marshall, or even like George Washington as a man of the people, you're denying the reality of who they were. And when you do that, you end up with cases where like children are told that these people are great and fantastic and could do no wrong. And then years later, they're told that we have to tear down statues because they were slaveholders and did other morally heinous things. And then they end up trying to defend that for some reason. And so, like, in creating this sort of mythologized history, you're not really serving children very well. So, like, I do like that he's trying to spread a message of kindness, but he's doing it with the wrong person here. In mythologizing America's history, we kind of paint over the actual reality that we lived in, and then we've run into the same problems in the present. Anyway, those are my thoughts on why he carried the turkey. Perhaps I did too much analysis here, but I feel I've run into this kind of problem whenever I encounter writers from the 17 and 1800s who are trying to mythologize the founding of America and end up sort of painting the wrong people as beacons of light or something like that. Maybe I'm overreaching there, but that is a problem that I do see with this story. It's still worth checking out if you can find it. I'll put a link to it in the description. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that more people can find out about this author or this short story if they don't already know. I have a feeling that a lot of people might just find out about James Baldwin, the writer from the 1800s, at this point, rather than having known about them previously. And also join the Discord, which I'll have a link to in the description. Feel free to comment on things there. And other than that, I wish you the best of luck in your weird and kind travels. Farewell.